Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson. Thank you for being part of our show today. It is greatly appreciated. As always, I do encourage you to drop by CourtneyAnderson.com and join in the conversation. Let me know what's on your mind. Share some show suggestions and ideas. So today we have a show that is part of the Help Situation Spotlight series. And of course, this is a show derived almost exclusively from you and your ideas. Community members let me know what's on their mind, and I try to think about and create potential possible solution sets to try to work through and help, of course, them reach and surpass their goals. So today we are looking at a very intriguing issue. And I actually think it's a really good question. So the show topic today is, how do I know when to never give up versus when to let it go? How do I know when to never give up versus when to let it go? And again, I really appreciate this question because it's fantastic. That it's interesting because it brings up, I think, something that's pretty obvious, that so many of the ideas and suggestions that are shared in business and management programs, in leadership development, and personal development and self-improvement, and so many of these ideas are in contradiction with each other, right? Seemingly. So the question is, you read so much and you hear so much, and so many people tell you, and sort of the idea is, you just never give up. Winners never quit, quitters never win. You never give up. And in fact, we've done other shows. We did a myth warrior show about, don't take no for an answer, right? The idea that I don't quit. I never give up. I keep going. And we have all of these fantastic examples in history, right, of someone who overcame incredible odds. We have them in our mass media, in every type of artistic endeavor, in film and fiction and music and video games and animation. I mean, it's just everywhere, right? You just never give up. Okay. On the other hand, you have so many messages from the same sources telling you, you gotta let it go. You gotta let it go. Just let it go. You gotta know when to let it go and walk away. You gotta let it go. So, okay, it let's first acknowledge it seems that it's not gonna be possible, or let's put it like this: it's not going to be probable that we're going to be able to attain and sustain a state where we are simultaneously never giving up and letting it go. They just seem to be in contradiction with each other. And let's first look at that. Now, it's interesting because it actually, I'm going to give an example from some corporate education programs I do based on workplace harassment free programs based on largely US based legal issues. So, for example, in the US, we're not supposed to create what's called a hostile work environment. We're not supposed to engage in behavior where someone is impeded or unable to do their job, okay? And if we're doing something that's of a sexual nature, right, that's potentially going to be sexual harassment, where someone's not able to do their job because of someone else's behavior that's not related to or part of their job description that's of a sexual nature, right? So repeatedly asking someone out for a date, groping someone, using sexually explicit language, propositioning someone, exposing someone's private body parts to someone else, or asking someone else to expose theirs. These I've done. I honestly would have to look, but I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these programs over almost 15 years, the last 15 years. So one of the things I talk about on those programs is when we talk about this idea of dating. Many people, especially someone who might be a little bit new to dating, so maybe it's someone who's younger, maybe it's somebody who was in a long-term relationship and has now is out of it and is now going to be dating, and they're just new to dating. And they'll say to me, well, okay, so I don't want to harass anybody at work, but I still want to make sure, that I'm looking for love. And I want to, where's the line? If I don't ask anybody out, then I'm never going to get a date, right? Nobody will know that I think they're attractive or that I'm interested in them, right? And so, what do I do? How do I still make sure that I'm doing everything I can in my power, to find love, and that I don't want to get in trouble or fired or disciplined in my job for harassing somebody? So I tried to explain to them the following. I said, look, if there's someone, let's say it's in your workplace, in your environment, and you feel that that might potentially be someone you might want to date, you certainly are allowed to, in using language that's not obscene, but culturally appropriate, ask someone, hey, would you like to go for a coffee? Or, hey, you know, would you like to get together and do something, when we're off from work this weekend? Those types of inquiries don't constitute sexual harassment themselves the first time it happens. So you can ask. So you're not going to give up. You can ask. The question though is when do you stop asking and when do you then kind of let it go? And what I've tried to tell people is this. I've tried to explain to them everyone has some, relatively important part of their life that's focused on this idea of a romantic love. So if you have someone in your mind and you have a very, like I said, a professional, appropriate first time inquiry, would you like to get together for coffee? Hey, you want to go to a movie this weekend? That one time first question doesn't constitute sexual harassment. If the person is potentially interested in you, so you're interested in them and they're interested in you, right? My suggestion is that you understand that if you ask them out and you do not get a yes, right? So I say to them, hey, you want to get together? Maybe, meet for a coffee, on this weekend? Okay. If I get oh yeah, I'll meet you for coffee. What time? All right. Then we go ahead and we make the plans and we meet for coffee. If I get anything other than a yes, so if I get someone who says, oh, I got plans this weekend, or they say, ooh, I don't really, let me get back to you, and they don't get back to me, or they say, um, yeah, but I'm gonna bring my spouse along too. Um, those are all ways of saying I'm not gonna meet you individually, potentially for some sort of romantic meeting outside of work. Anything I get that's not a yes means let it go. Stop asking. Now, I'm not giving up on love, right? I put that out there to that person and we'll wait and see what happens. And I've said, look, there's a lot of information that leads us potentially to believe that if someone else secretly does want you, and it's possible that you could ask somebody if they want to meet you outside of work socially, and they sort of, they don't give you a yes, but maybe it's because they were dealing with some, a grandparent that had health issues, or they were dealing with some of their own problems outside of work that you didn't know about, and so they wasn't the right time. If they secretly do want you, eventually when they're able and ready and willing, they will ask you out. So you've not given up on love, but you've let go this immediate behavior because you didn't get a yes. I'm trying to find a way for people not to become so angry and feel like, oh, now you're telling me to give up. You're just telling me to give up in life. You're just telling me not to do this anymore. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there has to be understanding of the consequences of your behavior. The easiest thing to do when you're trying to make a decision, we talk about this in so many of our programs, is to look at the outcome, right? So how do you know when to never give up? You know when to never give up when you're getting good outcomes. What do I mean by that? So let's say I started my business. Yeah, okay. Let's do a real life example. So I started my law firm, right? So I don't remember, but I was somewhere in my mid 20s. Okay, so I start my little law firm, and I have no money when I start my little law firm. So I go get a very cheap office space in a not fancy neighborhood next to a railroad track, because the rent literally was right around $100 US a month. which is very low for an office. So, and this wasn't an office with they have now they have these offices where you don't actually sit in the office, but you just sort of rent the address. You can get mail there, and you can go down there, and if you wanted to, you can rent a little place to meet. Executive offices, virtual offices. This is not one of those. This is an actual office that I had a certain amount of square footage, and I sat in the office every day. So it wasn't virtual or executive. Um, it was an office. Now there were many other people in this little office building. It was a little tiny, one-story, low-slung office building. Um, but my point is, I start my business, right? So how do I know when to not never give up? Well, so I start my business, and I went around the building, the little building I was in, and I introduced myself and gave my business card and told people we were opening our office, put my my sign out, law firm. Um, Actually went around the neighborhood and introduced myself to other businesses. There were some used car lots and other businesses in the vicinity. I started networking, right? I started trying to figure out how am I going to get some customers. I went down and got a list of all of the people who had recently filed paperwork with our local government entity with the county to file a business organization document. So basically, they were filing something that's called a DBA, a doing business as. So I went and got a list. They're public, so you go down there and you get the list. And then I sent all of those people letters, and I introduced myself and my law firm and said I specialize in business, which I do obviously, and let them know some of the services I had and congratulated them on filing their paperwork to start their new business and let them know that my new business was open, and that also brought in business. I went down to most or parts of the United States. It's sort of a quasi-related government entity that will help people in the public find lawyers, right? So they're like a lawyer referral service is what they're typically called. And because if you don't know anybody, how do you find a lawyer? Well, there's a place to start. And so I went to the lawyer referral service, and there's, a process and a vetting to get on their list where they might potentially refer people who contact them looking for a lawyer to your office. Okay, so these are all some examples of things I did, right? Now I have to wait and look at the outcome. If I had not made any money, and usually I'll give myself a certain time frame, right? So I don't, let's say I don't remember what I told myself at the time, but let's say I told myself you give it 6 months. And if in 6 months I can't make enough money to pay the $100 rent, the utilities on the office, and all my other overhead, then I got to let this go. Because at a certain point, a vision, which can be the beginning of something fantastic, right? You hear all these wonderful stories and narratives and experiences of people who are like, oh, I started it in my garage, my business, or I had a dream and everyone told me I couldn't do it. And then I went and I did it anyway. And now I won the Olympic gold medal, or, they said it wasn't possible for someone like me, but I kept going and I never gave up. And look at me, I'm the leader of my country or whatever. So you hear these stories and you think, wow, I just have to keep going. But you have to monitor the outcome along the way. So in other words, if I had started a vision can become an obsession. The same way that we all can celebrate, certainly globally, so many of these stories in every type of arena, sport, entertainment, government, science, art, that narrative, I never gave up and look at this wonderful thing that happened. That's great. We love that story. On the other hand, we can go walk anywhere in the world that I can think of pretty much. I mean, I'm sure there's some places where there are not that many humans, but any populated part of the world, and you're going to see humans and listen to humans, if you understand their language, who are talking about, sometimes just sort of wandering around publicly talking about a vision, right? I'm going to be the leader of a nation. I'm going to be a leader of a religious group. I've invented the most wonderful thing. And then when you really start paying attention, many of the people it's pejorative. People label them as sort of, oh, look there's a person that's unstable. There's a person who's, crazy. There's a person who's got all these, fantasies, and they're homeless. And the thing is, what's the difference between the person who's like, oh, I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to give up. Everyone told me no, I'm never going to give up. And the person who people just sort of dismiss as, mentally unstable or insane. Just look at them with all these, ramblings. Sometimes, obviously, there's a medical condition. So somebody might be suffering from a medical condition that's not being treated, unfortunately, and they're in a part of the of our human experience where no one is stepping up to ensure that they get the medical treatment, medication, and services to help them um, have a better quality of life. So that's a whole different issue, and I think one that we need to be very honest about. But there are times when that vision, which so many of us applaud, in so many different cultures and narratives around the world, becomes an obsession. It becomes incredibly unhealthy. And I certainly have experienced enough people, even when I did what I talked about a few minutes ago, right? So I did. I went out and I thought, okay, I need to go find customers, and I need to find customers that I don't have a lot of competition. So I just started trying to think creatively. If I'm a small business person, I filed some paperwork at the county, um, and that's a very cheap kind of business to start, a sole proprietorship. Then uh, I probably don't have a lot of people that are, marketing to me. So that's what I thought. But I would meet people who, some of the people I met and worked with became fantastic customers, right? Long-time customers, and they had all kind of interesting businesses, construction, janitorial services, truck drivers, models. I'm trying to think. I had so many different interesting people I worked with, right? But they all had what a business academic would call a going concern. They were making money at a certain point. If you just keep throwing money at something, you're never getting to a point where that entity is bringing you any income. It's a hobby, and then sometimes it can become an obsession. It's not a business. The business has to generate enough money to pay for itself, and then maybe, depending on what your long-term goals are, to grow or expand or whatever. But at least it needs to pay for itself. If it's not paying for itself, it's not a business. It's not. It's because where's the money coming from to pay the bills? Well, people take their own money from their credit cards or from their own full-time job, or they beg the relatives and friends for money. Well, that's not a business. It might become one, but a lot of people get caught up in this thing and they just keep thinking, well, it takes money to make money. So I just have to get more money, and then the more money I put into it, then eventually, of course, it's going to make money because why not? I'm working so hard. Oh, and that's something we have other programs on. The idea that people will get caught up in this thing, I'm never going to give up because I'm working so hard. I want to say it right now, and like I said, we've got more. Um, we've got programs that dedicate more time to this issue, but the correlation between working so hard and outcome is not what I think most people think it is. Because I hear it all the time in really odd settings. So someone will say, I have a business idea. I talked to somebody just a while ago. I get inquiries, as you can imagine, from people from all over the world with all types of ideas. And so I'll do my best if I can. My schedule permits to listen and try to give my advice. But there's so many people who have an idea and they'll say, I've put, 50,000 US dollars into this. I've not made any money. I'm in financial stress and trouble, and I'm trying to get them to see, what are some things they maybe could do to make money. And people get very angry sometimes, and they'll just say, well, no, it takes money to make money, and I work so hard. Working hard and meaning your business is going to succeed, or working hard and your marriage is going to succeed. I saw that certainly as a family lawyer, right? I work so hard. I've done everything that I can for her. Right, but that what's it have to do with this? The equation of, is the business making enough money to sustain itself, is not related to how hard you work. You may be a very lazy business person, but your business might be making enough money to sustain itself. And in fact, I see a lot of that, right? Um, where people aren't even really handling their business. They're, I'll rely on my manager. They'll do it. I'm busy. Okay. But if it's making money, it's making money. And it's, the marriage analogy. So many people, as an attorney, I'd be, in these cases, and they say, well, I worked so hard. I did everything for, her. I loved her. I tried to be the best I could for her. I just did everything. I worked so hard, to be everything she wanted me to be. Here's the deal, though. What does that have to do with the fact that she's filed for divorce? Nothing. What does it have to do with the fact that your business is failing, that you worked hard? Nothing. And I sometimes will hear it as an educator, a student who just, sometimes are very valid reasons, right? They're like, I'm working hard, but maybe they don't have the skill set they need, or maybe they were missing some of the fundamental, skill development that they needed prior to entering a program. And they'll say, I work so hard. And I'm like, yeah, but what does that have to do with the outcome? Working hard in a marriage and somebody falling for divorce, not related. Working hard in a business and the business failing, not related. Working hard in a academic program or a class and failing, not necessarily related. Sometimes they're just things that are beyond your control. So maybe you're working really hard on your business, things are going fine, and boom, a hurricane hits your business and devastates the region. Well, okay, what can you do? Other than have planned ahead, had some alternative financial cushion, and had a lot of insurance. You work really hard at a marriage, you're doing your best, the other person, whatever reason, hey, not working for me, I'm out. What can you do? Nothing. And the argument, I work so hard, I put so much time into this, it's not, it doesn't, I can't do anything as an attorney or a mediator. A judge can't do anything. The other person, if that argument would have worked, they wouldn't have been there divorcing you. Um, and what I think what tends to happen is, instead of us looking at the outcome, which is it's the only check. We talk about checks and balances so much in, society, right? The idea that I need a check and a balance. So in our own head, there's the beauty of imagination and creativity and all of the things that we all love and celebrate. But it's not necessarily easy all the time in your own head to be accurate in your perception of things in life. So an easy thing, if I'm concerned about, oh, am I getting out of shape? Maybe I'll go ahead and get out that measuring tape and measure. Oh, okay. Have I gained any inches or lost any inches? That'll be a way for me to figure out what's going on. I'll get on a scale. Have I gained or lost? That'll be a clue for me. Because sometimes in your head, you can't really tell. And some people's perception is way off. It's very inaccurate. So you have people who are undersized and they just keep thinking, oh, I'm too large, and they don't eat, and they hurt themselves, right, through addictions to really unhealthy behaviors. The other people on the opposite side who are not in a healthy, they're oversized, and yet in their mind they think, oh, I'm fine. And they don't listen, right? And even when a doctor or someone says, "Here's some of the consequences of your behavior," they're, well, I don't really see it. It's not a big deal. I'm fine. So you need external measurements to be able to help us sometimes, because our own sort of frame of reference is is biased, and it's also so impacted by what we want. So if my dream is for my business to succeed and I'm just wedded to that dream, it's very difficult for me to look at the numbers and realize on paper I'm not making money. This is not a business. I'm losing money. I'm not going to be able to keep doing this. If somebody's in a marriage, and again, from the perspective as a divorce attorney, and it's so hard to let go of that dream, of that family, right? Of everything they put into this, of all the time and the years and the sharing and the hope and the faith and the trust. I get that, but the reality is, if that person is either gone or is still, or is abusive, or has, is just cut you off in terms of communication, and it's like, I'm done. You have to accept that. So how do I know when to never give up? You need some sort of external, credible assessment, right? And if you're getting, quote, good outcomes. So maybe what I was saying, let's say that I started my law firm, right? So I wasn't rich. I'm not, it's not like, oh, and then I went and my law firm became the biggest law firm in the universe. And I am the biggest, richest lawyer in the universe. And I'm a multi-billionaire. No, I'm not. Never was. But it made enough money with stumbles. I have whole other programs we've done. Because I had no money, I was undercapitalized. I had tough times where money would come in from a customer and I would have that money in, and then, I'd have other little bills and something would hit the account the wrong time, and I might would have a check returned and be very embarrassed, or I'd have a check I was going to deposit and not realizing, because it was all like very, in the moment. It was a cash business. It was, I didn't have extra investors or lines of credit or resources I could go, draw from. I was so there were some very painful and embarrassing and stressful lessons to learn. But at the end of the day, was it bringing in enough money? And at the end of the year, was it bringing in enough money to pay the bills? It was. Did I need to learn how to manage those cash flows? Did I need to learn? And as I, of course, financially became more stable, that I did have more resources, right? So after a little bit of success, and I was able to go out and buy a home, and then I had more resources, then I was able to set up what you do when you are a prudent business owner, where you have different options to ensure that you don't have those cash flow crunches like that, and you don't have a problem. But all this I learned, a lot of it I learned the hard way. But if the business bills were, 9, X, I made 10X, which is what I needed. Now, that's not enough to get rich on. It wasn't enough to build an empire on necessarily, but it was enough to pay all my bills, to pay myself, and that's a business. Not a big business, not a super successful business, pay my taxes. Like, everything was what it was supposed to be in terms of, like I said, I had to learn a lot of embarrassing lessons with a really really tiny small business where you're dependent on all of that revenue for your outlay, and you don't have a lot of backup sources. But that's okay because I did learn. You know when not to let go when you're getting good outcomes. I was making money, and I was making enough money to pay all of the bills, including myself and taxes and all of that. Okay, that means I'm not going to give up. Unless, and let's add this: the most important thing to know about when you're looking at never give up or let it go, it goes to the idea that I share in so many of these programs, is this idea of the joyful art of business. Remember, it's not just is the business making money. It's not just is the other person in the marriage not filing for divorce. It's not just those things. What it is also is, how do you feel about it? In other words, if I was miserable doing what I was doing at my law firm, then I don't care how much money it makes. At some point, I need to go. I need to let it go because it's not working for me. I'm giving you one example of an easy external measurement with the income, because that's where a lot of people get caught up in delusion. And they even have in many parts of the world, right? From, I was going to say, in the U.S., in Canada, in Asia, in Africa, they have all these, they have media, television shows where people will come to other people's businesses and look at the numbers, Australia, and say, look, your numbers are horrible. You're not making any money at this beauty salon. You're not making enough money at this bar or restaurant, this hotel. Do you see this? It's horrible. Your numbers are horrible. And then the people, usually, of course, who were picked for the show, will sit there and look like, what? And what it is it's the delusion. It's just like that person who goes, and gets on a scale and is like, and the doctor says, you've gained 50 pounds. And they're like, what? I don't notice it. Well, yeah, because you put on all your loose elastic clothes and you did notice it. You just tried to pretend like it wasn't that big of a deal. And the ability that the human has to withstand a lot of stress and to project your own sort of reality is a powerful, wonderful gift. You need that. The question is, when do you need to change your action? One is the external measurement, and two is this thing I'm saying about how do you feel about it? When do you give up when you don't want to do it anymore? There's so many people that I have had the pleasure and privilege of working with in different capacities, and even myself. Sometimes I'm thinking through something and I'm thinking, do I want to do that? Or, do I want to do this? Or, then, some people call it your gut feeling. How do you feel about it? Are you kind of excited? Like, this is going to be really awesome. I wonder how it's going to happen. Or, yeah. Or do you sort of dread it? Are you procrastinating? Are you putting it off to the last minute? Because the reality is you're not that fired up about it. Then don't do it. I want to make this point really clear. Like I said earlier, that when I do the harassment-free workplace education programs for clients on site, you're not giving up on love by just saying, I'm not going to keep asking this one individual person out over and over again because I haven't gotten a yes. Right? So I'm not going to ask them out anymore. But that doesn't mean I'm giving up on love. I'm not letting go of my entire dream. I'll just sit around forever sad and lonely and complain and whine that I'm lonely and sad. I'm not going to do that. That's counterproductive and silly. What you might need to do is change how you're going about things, right? So I'm not giving up on the idea that I'm going to find the right person for me or create whatever kind of family relationship or whatever makes me happy. I just need to understand that I'm going to not do it maybe with that person that I asked out already and they didn't give me a yes. So I'm going to let that go with them, but I'm still going forward with other people because they're going to be somebody else. And it's the same thing with everything that, people get so stressed about. I've been out of a job, or I couldn't find a good job, and, I just want to give up. I just want to give up. No! Now you might need to give up with the jobs you've applied for. You might need to give up with that company or that industry. Maybe you need to give up with those types of, work arrangements. Maybe you need to give up in that location, right? But you're not gonna quit and just be like, I'll just gonna let it go. I'll just never work again. I'm just gonna give up. I just have to live like this, till I die. No. You must look at your outcomes and ask yourself, have I ever been able to be earning income and support myself? Yes, I have. Okay, good. Does that make me feel good about myself? Yes, it did. All right. Then I'm not going to give up on being able to earn income and support myself. I need to go about it a different way, though. I need to give up on these specific things I'm doing that's not working. So if I've applied and I've sent out 527 resumes and I haven't gotten any interviews, or then that's not working. So maybe I need to try something else. What would I try? Depends on what your business is or where you live. Is there some sort of job training program? Can you do temporary work? There's there maybe you want to be a contractor instead of an employee. Maybe you want to work part-time instead of full-time. Maybe you want to work remotely. There's a lot of things you can do. And we put together a lot of programs to give examples of what you can do. But what I'm saying is you must have some pre-planned way to begin to take your measurements and figure out, when am I going to give up on this path or this one opportunity, um, you know, and when should I let something go because it's destructive? How do you know? You're going to have some external way to measure it, because in your own head you're not always going to know. So like I said, as a divorce lawyer, in so many of those relationships, the case was so complicated, not because of the law. I mean, divorce, unless people have some very, um, elaborately structured, businesses or income and assets, most of the divorce, the law is pretty simple. It's the emotion. And it's because one person usually doesn't want to let it go. But they're in a situation where you would think, and I haven't been in this position, so obviously I can't speak to it personally, but you would think the fact that the person filed for this in court, and like there's lawyers involved and mediators, and like we're in court, is a clue that I might need to let it go, let this go. Not let marriage or spouses or relationships go, not let love go, not let that I'm a valuable, wonderful, desirable person go, but I need to let this specific situation go. I'm getting a really bad outcome. And then many times in life, there's nothing I can do about it. So if I had a business and a hurricane came through, or a tornado, or some sort of an earthquake or something, some sort of horrible natural disaster, and destroyed my business, and I did not have any insurance, and I had no money, I may not be able to rebuild that business at that location. I may need to let that go. Now, it doesn't mean I'm letting go on being my business owner dreams. I might do it a different way. You need to have an external measurement of some sort, because you can't just trust your head, because often your head is caught up in your vision. And remember, vision can become obsession. Vision that relates to tangible outcomes that are positive is great. Vision that never ever manifests itself in any tangible outcomes that are positive is an obsession. And people sometimes can veer off into obsession, and it's not, and they don't have, so we're excluding people who may have a mental illness or a condition that's not being treated, that are not making rational choices. But there are people sometimes who are healthy, but they just become obsessed with something, and it becomes so destructive to them and other people. And so you have to have an external measurement. The other second thing I said is, you need to, how do you feel? Usually when things veer off into obsession, people feel horrible. They're stressed out. They're frightened. They're anxious. They're have their emotions are on the edge. They're not at all feeling good. They're overwhelmed. So an external measurement that you need to pre-plan ahead of time. Maybe it's a certain amount of time. Maybe it's a certain amount of income. Maybe it's a certain type of behavior change. If it's a relationship, you need to pre-plan that. Talk to people. Communication. Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how long we're going to try it. Okay. In these things where I was a divorce lawyer, sometimes they're not, sort of the most stereotypically horrible situation, but maybe it's one person who says, I'd asked my spouse, if she would, join me in doing fun things, because she never wants to do anything fun, and all she wants to do is sit around and complain and be, and never ever leave her room. And so I said, okay, let's try this or that. And I said, let's try in 6 months, to either do one fun thing, or try to move toward doing a fun thing, or maybe work with a counselor or a religious or spiritual guide, or whoever we need to work with, or a group or something, to try to figure out why, we're having these challenges. And if you do all of that, and the person still refuses to do anything, you either have to accept the situation you have, which may be that this is a lonely, sad, depressing way to live, um, and just and truly accept it and let go of this change thing, or you have to let go of living like this. But this is the call the person has to make based on the outcomes. And I'm, for myself, I fall victim to the vision that can veer into obsession all the time because nothing makes me happier than imagining and creating and doing things and that don't exist. And at this point in my life, it's much easier because I've created situations where I've got the financial um and the time, and so I can indulge a little bit in a safe way, and it's still fun. And oh, do I want to invest in this, or am I interested in that kind of thing? But I still have to guard and have my measurement, my predetermined way that I'm going to have my metric to check. Am I veering off potentially? Um, and that's just the reality, especially for people like myself, and I'm sure you, that you're creative. You love creating things that don't exist, whether it's a business or family or relationship or something wonderful, or a charity. It doesn't matter. You just you're sort of wired that way, but you have to have a way to check it externally, because otherwise sometimes you can convince yourself of all kind of things. The other thing is, how do you feel? So you need to let it go when it's not working. You need to never give up when it is working. Let it go when it's not working. What do I mean by working? What are your outcomes? How do you feel? Oh, I feel great, and yeah, it's taking care of itself. No extra stress. I'm enjoying it. Okay, that means it's working. When it's working, you don't give up because you don't want to give up, and it's working, especially by that external metric. If it's not working, let it go. So again, I'm going to repeat here as we close. How do I know when to never give up? When it is working in terms of positive outcomes. I'm not giving up because I'm getting positive outcomes. I'm keep going. Versus when to let it go. I'm going to let it go when it's not working in terms of positive outcomes. I am not getting positive outcomes. And include in those outcomes how you feel. That's the answer to the question. It's much easier to give you the answer than it is to go out and apply it. And that's the hard part. Because we don't want to admit when even the data and our external metric shows us, hey, this is not working. We don't want to let it go because we just want to argue, well, I need more time, or, it's really hard for a lot of people. Look, letting this individual entity experience go doesn't mean you're letting go of the big picture goal. It just means that this is not working, and you're going to continue to burn time and resources, emotional, financial, on something when the thing that could be working for you, you're preventing yourself from succeeding. It's like that stereotype is somebody that's in a horrible relationship, right? It's like your family or relative member, and you just think, oh, I don't even want to see him because every time I see him, I think about that horrible relationship, and it makes me angry, and I'm hurt because he's treated so badly, and all this kind of stuff. And you think to yourself, golly, if only he would just, I know so many people that would love him. He's such a great guy, right? He's funny, he's nice, he's sweet, he's a hard worker, he's honest, but he's stuck in this horrible relationship. And as long as he's stuck in this horrible relationship, he's not even going to be able to get out there and meet the great person who'd be great for him. It's that idea. It's that idea that by sticking to something that's not working, you obviously are, creating more anxiety and stress and disappointment and pain. But the thing is, you're also, weirdly enough, you're preventing happiness for yourself in some form of what we'll label success, right? Where it does work. So instead of you saying, you know what, this is not working, I'm getting really bad outcomes, I feel horrible, and realizing, wow, if I just change to a different, formula, so maybe not this person, maybe not this business, there's someone out there who it would work. And all this time I'm spending here is preventing me from out there being with that thing that would be great. And some people say, well, that's not true. Grass is always greener. People always said something better, and then you realize there isn't. Okay, that's because sometimes we're not being rational. Sometimes people just complain, and we look at the data, and it really is working, but they just are making themselves miserable. That's a different type of scenario. If you really are in a situation where it's emotionally, psychologically, and by every other metric, it's not working, the longer you stay in that, the more you're preventing yourself from being something that would be working. And you're not somebody that wants to just sit around in misery and pain because you're part of our program. People who want to just sit around and be miserable never ask the question when to give up versus when to let it go because they just want to sit in misery. So they stay there. They know what to do. People who love misery and pain know exactly what to do to stay miserable and in pain. But our programs aren't for them and they wouldn't be part of this. The only people who would ask, when do I never give up and when do I let it go, are people who want it to not be horrible. Or want it to be, better. And so now we know what to do, right? Never give up when we have outcomes that are working for us that are positive. We know when to let it go when we do not have outcomes. It's not working for us. The challenge is how are we going to work with our internal self-sabotaging behavior so that we get out of our own way and go out there and let good things into our life instead of sitting in something that's not working and just complaining or being sad or mad. That's the part that's the heavy lifting part that you have to do individually. You can do it with resources, you can do it with people who care about you, but you got to go do that quiet work. You have to sit quiet somewhere and listen to your own thoughts and start thinking through these things. Why am I doing this to myself? Thank you for coming and staying and being part of our program. I do want to encourage you to go to CourtneyAnderson.com, and I hope that you will join me in the future for another episode. Thank you.